good and pleasant day to all of you, and I hope you are all healthy, doing fine, and in spite of all the challenges, managing to keep a step upper lip and being very friendly about it. In any case, just trying to amuse you. I guess you all, most of you, many of us have reason to be cheerful today, especially those of you who are employed, because it is December 15, 2020. It's a Tuesday, and welcome to the program Agenda. I'm Cito Beltran, your host, and please join us today as we go through several topics, and I think they're quite promising, although one would be of concern, but generally they are promising. We'll start off, of course, with an interview with Father Nicanor Austriaco of the OCTA Research Group from the University of Santo Tomas, because generally we always refer or think of OCTA, the OCTA Research Group, as a group from the University of the Philippines. Well, recently we've learned that hindi lang pala yan UP. Meron din pong participation ng UST, significant participation, and we will be speaking with a very young man of the cloth, but apparently very well versed in research, none other than Father Nicanor Austriaco. And then after that, we will speak to a regular here on Agenda, a good friend and someone who is a source of inspiration, because in spite of the challenges, in spite of the naysayers, he comes up with these novel ideas to fight novel coronavirus. And we're speaking of none other than Joey Concepcion, because right now, there is a growing interest in the COVID-19 vaccine. There is a growing concern on how the vaccine will reach the Philippines, how it will be distributed, and who will get to be vaccinated. Dahil lagi pong sinasabi ng taong tiga-Pasig, nauunahin yung mga mahirap, yung mga salat, yung mga walang-wala, yung mga frontliners, and syempre yung ating military and police. Pero paano naman po yung mga taxpayer, yung naghahanap buhay at kumikita, sariling kayod, sariling sikap, or is it going to be what the business sector is doing, taking care of its own flock na laang? Kasi baka umasa pa kayo, matagal lang kayong umaasa, yung mga business natin, mga kumpanya, mga factory, hindi ma-operate ng husto kasi hindi nababakunahan ang mga tao dun. Okay, and after Joey Concepcion, we will speak with Governor Hermogenes, June Ebdane, ex-general, ex-police officer, and now currently governor. Ewan ko kung ex-congressman din si Governor June Ebdane, but we will speak with him and we will find out. Kasi mukhang pwede na raw ang turista sa Zambales. Naku po, kung mahilig kayo sa beach, mahilig kayo sa mangga, at mahilig kayong mag-sports fishing. Naku, yung mga mahilig dyan, mga nangangawil. Okay? Ay doon po sa Zambales, mahaba-haba ang kanilang coastline. So we will find out about that. Now, the time is 8:03, okay? And I just want to share something very interesting for those of you who are struggling, for those of you who feel, you're in a bad situation. I just read something this morning in my quiet time. It is from Genesis 41. It is the story of Joseph. Nung nandun pa siya, di ba, tinakwil siya ng mga kapatid niya, muntik na siyang patayin. They sold Joseph into slavery. He was falsely accused. He was thrown in jail. Everything until he made it to the palace and became the number 2 man of the Pharaoh. And he named his 2 sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And it was very, it spoke to me when he said, I have named my son Ephraim because God has made me fruitful in the land of my trials, or of my tribulation, in the land of my tribulation. Kumbaga, Nandun ka sa lugar na hindi ka ayos-ayos o kaya ay maraming pagsubok, but he remained productive. And I hope that that is how you will be today, remaining productive. Let's go to the front page of the Philippine Star. Business leaders of the Management Association of the Philippines, or MAP, hope for an accelerated or early rollout of the COVID-19 vaccine to boost business confidence. Kasi yan po ang pinoproblema, baka mag-teka-teka, baka maantala, matagalan, mapolitika yung pagpondo, yung paglabas ng pera, ang mangyari, matagalan, yung atin namang ekonomiya ang ma-COVID. Okay. Meanwhile, Pala says there is no surge in COVID cases yet. Wala pa raw paglukso, paglundag, pagtalon, pagdami ng COVID cases. Medyo may napapansin lang paggalaw. Kasi pababa na, medyo tumigil at medyo parang toink, toink, toink. Okay, at the top of the page, the Transport Department has been urged to suspend order on cashless toll transactions. Yan po, posisyon na ng Senado. Naging posisyon na yan ng Kongreso, naging posisyon ngayon ng Senado na i-hold muna itong total cashless. Kung sinasabi naman kasi ng TRB na 90% na raw ang penetration, 80% na daw ang use, di okay na yon, malaking bagay na yon yung 10%. Pero remember this, no? When we interview the TRB people, they always speak in percentage. They don't speak in numbers. As in, if there are 6 million users, 6.1, sabi yata ni Congressman Edgar Sarmiento, users of the NLEX or the SLEX, ilang percent ang 10 nun? So 610,000. Hindi ho konti yung 610,000. So matatagalan pa. Okay. At the bottom part of the front page, the Senate is set to probe the vaccine procurement and inoculation program while the vaccine shipments in the United States has begun. So, kumbaga, eto na naman po, iimbestigahan na naman, o tatanungin, saan nyo kukunin ng pera, paano nyo ilalabas ang pera, paano nyo i-distribute yan. Ayan na yung pinag-iingatan natin or gusto nating maiwasan na baka mapunta na naman sa politika yan. Kasi syempre, in the Senate, there are the opposition and the administration. And always, historically, someone along the way in the Senate or in Congress always has the bright idea, paimbestigahan natin yan para makakamera tayo, mapicture na naman tayo. Ilabas nyo muna yung bakuna. Yun ang pinaka-importante. Okay, President Rodrigo Duterte has also approved pilot testing of face-to-face classes. Okay, yan po. Itest lang, pero the reality is, bakit mo pa susugal? Puntahan, check na lang natin lahat yung mga ibang bansa. Just find out what the other more developed, better equipped, more disciplined, better funded nations around the world have experienced when they attempted face-to-face classes. Punta kayo Japan, Korea. Doon, super ingat. Ngayon, kung doon nagkakaproblema sila o maayos, then pwede natin gayahin. Pero yung gagawa tayo ng independent test dito, susugal ka pa. Meron namang nagpapatupad ng proseso. Ba't pa tayo magsusugal ng buhay ng mga bata? Hello, madaling sabihin yan, di natin anak eh. Pero pag anak mo na yung nagkasakit, anak mo na yung tumumba, or yung anak mo ang kinuha ka po sa pag-aaral. Because I go both sides here, no? I mean, I have to consider what happens to the kids if they don't have face-to-face. Ako nga, yung anak namin, dapat homeschooling. Sabi namin, wag, mahirap na. It was a good year, but she needs social skills. In any case, the health department is also investigating a health facility for its pricey or expensive swab testing. Ayan na. Kasi sinabi na po ni Secretary Duque noon ng Department of Health, yung pag-PCR swab testing, 5,000 laang maximum, wag nang lalampas. Dito mukhang pricey. Di pricey. Kung pricey, baka mga 8,000 siguro. Kasi kung diferensya ang 1,000, kasado na yan. Pago, 1,000, kasado na yan. Sabi nga sa bunga. Dito po hindi. Pricey daw. Pag pricey, can't afford. Mahal, pang mayaman lang. Iniimbestigahan. Ang tanong lang dyan, yung Berhere, no si Balasi. Sino ba sila? Sino sila? Yang mga walang yan na nagpe-presyo ng pagtataas-taas. Baka biglang sabihin sa inyo, pricey kami kasi home service Okay. So those are the news items on the front page of the Philippine Star. Puntahan naman po natin sa lahat ng father, ito bata. Father Nicanor Austriaco, member of the OCTA Research team. He is also a faculty member of the Department of Biological Sciences of the University of Santo Tomas. Father Nicanor Austriaco.
Good morning.
Ang hirap kang tawagin, Father. Ang bata-bata mo
Good morning, Cito. Thank you for having me on your show.
Okay, I overheard your conversation with Gab, our executive producer, and you were quite honest and said you don't know much about my family background. If you want to know more about us, you can go to somewhere in the UST and look for that picture of San Luis de Beltran. Merong pong santo ang UST na ang pangalan San Luis de Beltran.
I will look for, say Louis Bertrand, I will look for him.
Okay, well, in any case, just trying to make the morning cheery, Father. Is it Nick? Father Nick?
Yeah, my students call me Father Nick.
Okay, Father Nick, what's your reaction or what's the real story? Because yesterday I got a message, tumaas daw yung incidents of transmission of COVID-19 from a low of 9 something or 1, it went to 1.1. Now it's being corrected, it's 1.6. Malacanang said, no truth to the story. What are you guys in UST seeing?
So basically we're looking at what is called the R. And the R is a number that tells you how many other people a single person will infect if that person has COVID. So if the R is 1, then one COVID patient will infect one other COVID patient. So if the R is below 1, that means that the pandemic is shrinking because one person, if it's 0.9, so one person cannot infect one other. So it's less than 1. So what's happened is over the past weekend, the R has risen above 1 since August. So this is the first time in August. If you remember in August, we went through the MECQ and there was a surge, di ba? So since then, the pandemic has kept going down and the R has been good. But this past weekend, the R, especially in the NCR, has gone up above 1 for the first time in many months. And so technically, by definition, the wave has begun. And so the question now is, how high is the wave and how fast is the wave? And that's the concern that OCTA has. We see the wave coming and we want to keep the wave down and the wave slow. No tsunami for Christmas.
Okay, is this possibly just an initial ripple resulting from the increased mobility of a month and a half ago or a month ago, or is this actually a legitimate the second coming, so to speak?
For us, it will be a third wave. So we had the initial wave sa May, sa March, and then June and July was second time, and this will be number 3. What we have done is we have looked, every day the R could go up above 1, but here we are looking at a trend. And we have seen that the R has been increasing by 0.01 per day since the beginning of December. So it's just slowly going up, and it has now passed 1. And there, because of the increasing mobility since October, really. So the lowest are what, about 0.6 in October, and then rightfully so, as we began to open the economy to help people to recover their lives and their livelihoods, not surprisingly, the R has kept going up, but it has been under control. But now it has gone above 1 for the first time in many months.
Okay, is it
That is the R.
yeah, is it a rise that is indicative because of mobility, or is it a bump, a large rise indicating that maybe people have become reckless? Kasi I think you get my point. I mean, may ripple because lumabas tayo, but there is a bump because nagdagsaan. Because I mean, I was one of the first to point out the Visoria, it's for instance, was you know a danger zone, and it has been duplicated in many other parts of Metro Manila.
It's probably both, right? So people are congregating more precisely because the perception is that everything is fine. And the message that they've received that everything is fine is because of the gradual opening. The human beings will say, if something is wrong, we're not going to open. So the fact that we are opening suggests that things are better. And the numbers, the case numbers in hospitals is very low, the lowest in many months. So even doctors have a sense, my colleagues who are doctors, health workers, they have a sense that things are better, and things are really better. It's a matter of trying to figure out how we are going to manage the next few weeks, because there is going to be increased social mixing, increased mobility over the next few weeks, and then people will remove their masks when they're celebrating because they have to eat.
Yeah, Father Nick, I find that paradoxical. Huh? And I'm not, challenging you or anything, but, just weird for me. I'm trying to understand it. How can things be better? How can things be okay even in hospital settings, and yet you see bumps or rise in the statistics?
Because hospital occupancy is delayed by about 2 to 3 weeks from increases in cases. So as the cases increase, so they're increasing now, we will see an increase in hospital occupancy probably 2 to 3 weeks from now, because it takes several weeks for people who just got sick to get sick enough to enter the hospital. So if you look at any of the pandemic curves around the world, there is always a delay of 2 to 3 weeks in the hospital, and deaths will be delayed even longer, especially now because by the grace of God, we're better able to treat COVID patients.
Mm-hmm. Now, I have a daughter. My only child is in the Netherlands studying, and when they speak of second or third wave in Europe or in America, they're talking about thousands a day of cases. What makes us different?
Nothing makes us different. So can we have tens of thousands of cases here? Absolutely. In August, in June and July, the end of July, we were having 4,000 cases on average in the Philippines, 2,000 per day here in Manila, in the NCR. Can we have that again? Yes. But we are in OCTA, our hope and our goal is to prevent that from happening, because we do not want to see another lockdown. There are places in the world that have gone back into lockdown, and lockdowns, as you pointed out at the top of your show, are emotionally, mentally, economically, financially devastating for so many families, especially the poorest of the poor. And so we want to try to avoid that.
Okay, now there is a debate, so to speak, a very silent debate, if you would call it, where some groups are saying, we should just go back to MECQ. Some people, we should just really tighten on all mobility or activity, and the other people are saying, live and let people learn to be responsible. What is your comment on this? Based on the statistics,
So I will answer in two ways. First, I will answer as a priest. So I hear confessions all the time. And one of the things you discover when you hear confessions and when you hear people at their weakest is that responsibility takes energy. And when people are tired and when people are stressed, they do not want to be responsible. And so what you can see throughout the world is that
I love how you
are exhausted, you know?
sorry. Father Nick, I love how you put that. I'm sorry to cut in, no? But I love how you put that because, you know, it gives us a way to better understand those who just kind of slip up and
tired.
give in. We're all tired.
You know, they're tired. So you have to encourage them, but you have to be realistic. And so around the world, what they have tried and what I hope the Philippines will do, and this is OCTA's position, is that after Christmas and after the New Year, we start to limit some of the mobility to decrease the R. And we do not have to go into lockdown. That is always the last measure. That is always the most extreme public health measure that we can do. And we can avoid that as long as we keep the numbers moderate. And most of the data shows that it's associated with mobility. So if the mobility is what is driving our rise, then we have to consider rolling back some of the mobility openings in order to prevent a lockdown.
Okay, I'm worried that because of the season and because of our religious practices and tradition, the Simbang Gabi might be a source of transmission, and you know I'm almost certain that if that happens, if that can be traced, the Catholic Church is going to be the recipient of criticism. So, what's your reaction to that?
It's not just it's going to be the entire holiday season, right? So in the West, what drives the transmission is inter-household gatherings, parties. So the more parties you go to, the more likely it is. So it's going to be Simbang Gabi. It's going to be parties. It's going to be seeing Lolo and Lola on New Year's Day. It's all of the different things that we do to celebrate family, to celebrate community. So that's what's going to happen. Now, I am celebrating Simbang Gabi tomorrow night here at UST, and we're doing it, they've moved the Simbang Gabi to outside, in front of our major square, and we are of course socially distancing. There's masks, everything else, and we're limiting capacity in the church. So there are reasonable things that are being done to limit social distancing, but overall it's everything. It's all of the things that are going to happen for the next 9 days, all the social mixing.
Yeah, no. So what from the Catholic Church or from UST? What message are you sending to people who, you know, especially the young people? It's like they're going to be so excited. Finally, my chance to go out. I can see my friends, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know, we all had that when we were kids, but these are not the same times.
Well, I think your message is correct. We are not living in normal times. And I always tell people, you have only one Lolo and one Lola, but you have many Christmases. Mm-hmm. So let's be safe this Christmas and celebrate next year when the vaccines begin to roll out in the Philippines.
Okay, now as far as the situation is concerned, any recommendations or suggestions to the national government or the IATF regarding this matter?
So I think what OCTA will say is that we have to be incredibly vigilant. Our messaging has to be the virus is still here. We have to be safe. We have to do everything we can to minimize social mixing, enjoy ourselves outside rather than inside. And then, especially for the national government, keep an eye on the R. And if the R rises above 1.1 and higher, especially after Christmas, then we should seriously consider rolling back some of the mobility freedoms that have been relaxed in the last few months.
Okay, what about academe students? Because the president wants to try out face-to-face classes, on a very controlled situation. I know that abroad, there are universities that mostly do their classes online, but they have once a week one physical class. My daughter attends once a week a physical, or I think two classes, physical classes, and everything is being observed: the health protocols, masks, social distancing, etc. What about UST? What are you guys doing there?
So we are still face-to-face, virtual completely. Mm-hmm. And my home university in the United States was face-to-face this past semester. Mm-hmm. Now, the reason they were able to do that in spite of a spike is that they were able to test every student with a swab test every week. Mm-hmm. It's incredible. That's the only way. And it's not possible here because of the expense. Mm-hmm. Really, to have to prevent a cluster outbreak in a campus, you must have regular PCR swab testing of the entire community, maybe once or sometimes twice a week. Everyone has to be tested in order to identify the asymptomatics and quarantine and isolate them and their contacts. Being here in the Philippines now for 6 months and working with OCTA and seeing the infrastructure here and the swab test, that's simply not possible.
Okay, what about the compliance? Having been in America at the start of COVID-19 and coming to the Philippines, are you impressed with the way the Filipinos have complied? And, we basically hunkered down for 9 months or 8 months at the least. When you do comparisons, what are your thoughts?
Look, we are a third the size of the United States. And yet the number of deaths, it's only about 8,000 compared to nearly 200,000. Mm-hmm. With regards to number of cases, we are now approaching 400,000. I think we just passed 400,000. Yeah. The States is into the millions. I'm incredibly impressed with the way the Filipinos have marshaled through this pandemic. Pandemic management is all about, there are many facets of pandemic management, and but the best way to do it is to track and trace and to test. And we simply cannot afford the kind of testing program that the West has been able to do. And so it is, in my mind, quite laudable that we have been able to do a lot with less. We have less than what many of the developed countries have, and yet we have been able to do much more. And the primary, when people point to Vietnam and they point to Thailand and they say, look, what wonderful pandemic management they have. And I agree, but the particular challenge that we have is OFWs. We have, Vietnam has not opened its borders to anyone, including its own citizens. And yet we have kababayans from all over the world who are being fired, who have found themselves jobless, and they wish to return home. And the Philippines has worked very hard to welcome back her sons and daughters, more so than even Australia, where there are Australians who cannot go home. And yet, but one of the things that the genetics of this COVID has shown is that most of the waves of COVID in the Philippines has been driven by imported cases. So you can see how our challenge of the thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of OFWs has made our work that much more difficult. And yet, in my mind, could it be better? Always. But it has not been as bad as others may have thought.
I guess you're, again, a good point that you raised, aside from, when you are tired, you kind of give up. But a good point you raised, because I don't think authorities have highlighted the fact that we cannot say no to OFWs, but we also cannot hide the fact that the returning OFWs, maybe a small percentage of them, are bringing the infections, and also the LSIs, the locally stranded individuals, because I guess, it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation for the national government. If they talk about all of this, they are put in a bad light. If they don't talk about it, they're also in a bad light.
Well, I think there's a difference. So if you are returning overseas Filipino, OF or OFW, and you're going to the province, the LGUs do really well at quarantine. So even if you test negative, you quarantine, which is important because they've shown that that if you get infected on the journey, it is likely you will not test positive for 4 or 5 days after the journey. So when you land at Naya, like when I returned from the US, I get tested right after the journey, and if I test negative, I can leave the quarantine hotel. But the science has shown that 50% of cases will show false negative as soon as you arrive. You have to wait a few days. Mm-hmm. So again, the provinces are doing well. The concern is actually dito sa NCR, where once you leave the quarantine hotel and you return to your home, no one is really keeping an eye on you to see if you are doing the 14-day quarantine that you should be doing.
Okay, which is why also the DOH, I believe, was saying that, if you guys cannot help yourself from going to your family reunions, from your Christmas gathering, at least go on self-isolation for at least a week.
At least a week, because 5 days, 50% of symptoms will show. So at least a week. A week is good.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think we've covered a lot of areas, Father Nick, and I really love that thing you mentioned, what you discovered during confessions, and
responsibility takes energy.
Can you repeat that?
Responsibility takes energy. If you are tired, you will not be responsible.
Yeah, it also goes the other way. Being responsible can be very tiring.
Okay. Exactly.
Okay, thank you very much, Father.
Well, you're welcome. Merry Christmas.
Okay, and same to you.
God bless you. Bye.
Thank you. That's Father Nicanor. Nicanor, Father Nick Austriaco. Pleasant interview. Alam mo, masarap kausap yung mga gano'n. And I noticed that as I speak to the much younger, younger generation, they tend to be more elaborate, more to the point, and also very informative. And I enjoy interviews like that. In any case, we will go for a quick break. When we return, let's go to Joey Concepcion, and let's find out what's going on with the AstraZeneca vaccine, the collaboration of the private sector companies, etc., regarding vaccines, here on Agenda. Okay, you're back here on Agenda. I'm Cito Beltran, your host. And at this point of the program, let's bring in Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship, none other than Mr. Joey Concepcion. Joey, good morning to you. Okay, let's try that again. Is Joey Con there? Okay, we lost the connection. Happens. This is the age of. I won't say age of Aquarius, age of aquarium, aquarium na walang laman. In any case, we will speak with Joey Concepcion regarding that issue because there are some concerns. One is that the AstraZeneca COVID trials here in the Philippines was canceled. The company canceled it or pulled out for the testing. Then there's this issue about what happens to the private sector when the vaccine comes in. And I understand there is a request or an approval for a second batch. Let's go. Let's try Joey Concepcion again. Joey, are you there already?
Hi, Cito, can you hear me?
Yep, I hear you loud and clear. You're looking good. Although evidently, looking at you, my friend, you have had some sleepless nights. I think you're working too hard.
That's part of, really trying to help this country move forward. It's a very challenging environment right now.
Okay, you have been nonstop really pushing for the procurement of vaccines, particularly for the private sector. Can you give our viewers an actual picture? Because some people are already confused. Some people are under the impression that the government is buying it all. Some people are under the impression that IATF, particularly Lito Galvez, has asked for the help of private sector to fast track it because their system is too complicated in the bureaucracy, and etc. etc. Well, where are we, and what's the situation?
Well, AstraZeneca came with this program of zero profit. And initially, Tessie Cosson of SM had initial discussions with AstraZeneca, and she asked me if I could help enlarge the group's participation. So that's how basically Gonegosyo got involved here, because we've been at the forefront ever since March, in all these testing initiatives, including the pool PCR testing, and the list goes on. And so we did get involved. I got involved, and I met with AstraZeneca, and it was a great program. And first, the most important thing was to come up with a tripartite agreement, because AstraZeneca can sell to the government. That's the program. They cannot sell these vaccines have to go to the government. That's part of their program. So what we did was that the private sector buys the vaccines from AstraZeneca, donates 100% of the vaccines to the government. Half of those vaccines, 50%, will be used by the private sector, the frontline workers, the poorest of the poor employees, following basically the same protocols or priority sectors listed by the government. The other half will go to the government basically. And we hopefully can suggest to Secretary Galvez if this government allocation can go to maybe specific LGUs or whatever. But at this point in time, the most important part of that tripartite agreement is that both pharma company and donor gets liability protection. And number two is that the employees of the donor companies will get that 50% share, which to us is very important, as we want to really ensure the safety of our employees as we really open up the economy. And it's good that we are able to bring more confidence to the market.
Okay, now, a lot of people in the private sector are pinning their hopes and concerns on you. I don't know if you realize this, but outside of those who are employed, there is a big population of people in the private sector who are not poor people who have ways and means, but no access. What about them? If they're not your employee and they're not covered by the government program, how are these people going to get the vaccine?
Well, our agreement really is, to serve first those that are really in the front line, no? And the owners eventually can just wait for the right time. But as per our agreement, the government has their own priority sectors. No? I mean, ages 80 and above, then it goes down to 75, 65. There's that list that Secretary Charlie showed us. No?
Yeah.
And those with high comorbidities, those are, what do you call this, in the priority sector as well. No? So, but at this point in time, the focus really of the support is really the frontliners. I think that the rest can come in much later on, but the frontliners are the ones that are exposed. And if we really want to open up the economy safely, this is what we have to do immediately. And,
Okay,
go ahead.
what is your timeline for all of this? Because last time I interviewed you, you were already referring to this unnamed company who had this program giving the vaccines for, as a donation, a non-profit. Now, right now, so it's AstraZeneca. What is the timeline?
Well, the first part of the orders will be coming in May and June onward, no? So it's not like coming in this month or January. It will be coming in basically May and June. The UK government, AstraZeneca has applied for, and hopefully the MHRA, which is the FDA version in their country, has to give approval now for the use of AstraZeneca. That's very important, so that our government will also be able to purchase the AstraZeneca vaccine. No? Without the MHRA approval, FDA will not be able to grant its use for emergency use. No? So, the president signed an executive order granting emergency use, no, of all of these vaccines, and under DG, our FDA head, no, DG Domingo. So this is very important, no, and hopefully before the end of the year or very early onto the year, that this MHRA approval will be granted. I think that we're quite optimistic. When the private sector looked at all the different factors before really supporting the Astra vaccine, we took all of this into consideration and put 50% of our deposit. Because without the 50% deposit, you can't take a position. Most of the developed countries, the reason why they have these vaccines is they have taken positions and put partial payments to these different vaccine manufacturers. And that's why you see a number of them already getting these vaccines this early. It's that the government wants to do it but cannot do it because we have laws in this country, rules and regulations, that you cannot purchase or put any money down if the vaccine has no FDA approval. And that is true for the public sector because that is public money. But for the private sector, we have certain advantages because this is the funds of our own companies, no? And we are willing to take risk, no? So it's not to say that the government is not doing its part. They're doing their part within the rules of the framework of our existing laws, no? So the president signed that executive order, which will immediately grant emergency use the moment the UK government grants the emergency use to AstraZeneca and whatever vaccines there are going to be, no?
So you're confident that if and when that happens, it will be in the first quarter of 2021?
Yes, it will be. No, not in the first quarter. Basically in May. So that's in the second quarter.
Oh, in the second quarter. Sorry.
Second quarter.
Now, the question here is, okay, you guys in the private sector are bankrolling or footing the bill for the vaccines. Now, AstraZeneca is not going to make a profit, as I understand. They're just selling it to you at cost. But what's in it for AstraZeneca from your discussions with them? Where do they stand to benefit from all of this?
Well, by the year 2022, they will start making money. In other words, for the year 2021, I think this is their support to the world on their efforts on trying to help the people of this world. No, it's a very noble program of theirs. Of course, they generate a lot of goodwill in the process. I mean, the CEO here has been very accommodating, especially with our second request, if they can extend the program a bit longer for part two, which they have acceded to doing yesterday, which was good news. So there are many companies who failed to meet the deadline in the first part. And, Cito, the challenging sectors here really are the tourism sector, the restaurant sector, and the retail sector. And we really need to vaccinate these people to ensure that they will not infect, people, and the industry can be more vibrant, and you will improve the level of confidence of our Filipino people that they can look towards a better year in the year 2021. If we don't vaccinate in the year 2021, definitely a lot of people will lose hope. And by the mere fact that at least we signed 2.6 million, and this coming, hopefully in the next 2-3 weeks, together with the government and the private sector, and I'm told the LGUs might get an allocation. This buoys up the level of confidence of our MSMEs who are on the brink of really giving up. As Father said earlier, the moment we lose hope, that's the end.
Yeah. I mean, responsibility takes energy. That's a new quote for all of us nowadays. Now, here, I'm just worried because, and please, if I don't expect you to know the answer, I would much rather I speak with someone from AstraZeneca. But I kind of picked up something yesterday where it was being said that the AstraZeneca vaccine was only effective by about 70% effective or something like that. And it was actually in discussions with another vaccine company to kind of augment or boost their vaccine. Have you heard of this angle?
Yes, so you had during their phase 3, if I'm not mistaken, phase 2 or phase 3, there were two discoveries there. No, the half dose, full dose gave an efficacy of about 90%. No, the two full doses gave an efficacy of about 70%. Now, most vaccines, especially the flu and the pneumonia vaccine, has an efficacy here of, I'm not a doctor, but I'm told it's between 50 to 60%. And normally the FDA approves any efficacy above 50%. So even at the two full doses, an efficacy of 50% or even lower than that, between 60 to 70%, is good according to them. Because even if you belong to the 30%, the infection, you could still get infected, and it will be milder. No, I've read a number of reports on this. Now, the half dose, full dose, I have no knowledge yet as to how they plan to pursue this. Whether they will now do more trials to pursue this, or they will just let it be. So, from the way we look at it, from the business sector, I think Astra is a good vaccine. In fact, Unilever, which is one of the British companies, and many others who have signed in to support Nestle and other multinationals have joined in, have done their homework. No? Yes, you have the Pfizer and the Moderna at higher efficacy levels, but we all don't really know yet what are the effects. As we see more trials and more people taking the vaccines, then you will be able to see what are the real effects. And of course, one consideration here is logistics. No, the advantage of AstraZeneca and SINOVAC, they are within the 2 to 8 degrees. No, Pfizer and Moderna are like in the minus 70 and minus 25, I believe, 28 degrees. No? So those are more challenging to distribute and to implement. I'm not
And
saying
to
it's
transport.
impossible. And to transport. I'm not saying it's impossible. It's possible, but in a country like the Philippines, which is a very hot climate, and definitely I don't see much cold storages or people who create that. Even our ice cream is nowhere near that minus level. It will be definitely more challenging. And if you've seen the video that's going around on unboxing the Pfizer, it's pretty complicating. But definitely they show a higher efficacy level. There's no doubt about that. No. So I think it depends. I think what we're trying to do here is we have a program that was brought forward by AstraZeneca. The private sector feels that the risk of bringing this in, considering that the British group is very, very conservative, we believe that it has a great chance of helping us solve our problem. Now, if SINOVAC comes in, if Pfizer does come in, and Moderna, the more vaccines that come in, the better it is so that people can choose what they want. But at this point in time, if we don't do anything, we won't have any vaccine for at least the first half of next year.
Yeah, based on your current negotiations or arrangements with AstraZeneca, how many million people are going to get the vaccine, and who is going to be the first person to get it from AstraZeneca in the Philippines? Will it be Joey Concepcion?
No, definitely not, because we are not in the front line. And, I mean, it's
No, because, I was just wondering if, people are going to say, no, mauna ka.
No, I mean, definitely they will open up to, but our agreement really is to serve first the poorest of the poor, the priority sectors, the frontliners, and it is not right for us to be the ones in the front line. I mean, we can definitely wait. I think it's our employees who need it most. I think the healthcare workers, the policemen, the people really there in the front line have to be protected, because if they're protected, their family will be protected. So even the families of the frontline workers are not part of it. It's just the frontline workers. So the government has already a who are first. No, I mean, it's very clear. I didn't bring the slide with me, but it's very clear, and I think it's very fair. I mean, I hear that there are vaccine programs around the world. I mean, you can go to this country, get vaccinated, provided you stay there for a month. I mean, those countries that with a lot of vaccines, much more than what they really need, I'm sure they'll use this to encourage tourism to come in. So these are the talks going around. But in the Philippines, we really have to serve the priority sector.
How many doses are you going to get, or how many million Filipinos are going to get? Assuming we have 100 plus million, you said the vaccine won't be extended to family members, simply frontliners, even in the private sector or business.
That's right. So
how many?
Our first part of the orders were close to 2.6 million. Hopefully we reach 2 million again, to close in at 5 million for part 1 and part 2. I think there's a program for LGUs, so that may be another portion. And the government definitely is going to have its, they're just waiting for regulatory approvals. But definitely Astra has an allocation for the government, a huge allocation. So we're a small, player in this whole thing, and we are just the first because we can take the risk. But if the government can take the risk, they would also be the first. I just want to clear that. They're just following the current rules, the laws of our country.
Of course. If AstraZeneca can do it, why can't all the other companies do it? Meaning, sell us the product, the vaccine, without profit. Has that ever been discussed, or are there companies sounding you off on that possibility? We can sell it to you at cost as well. Anything like that?
None, because basically the programs here, for even the one of Astra, is basically only allowed to be sold to government. No? So what we are is basically the conduit. We are the funder, but we donate it right away. We cannot take those vaccines and store it for ourselves. No? Those vaccines go to the government and will be handled by DOH. No? The whole implementation from taking
Okay.
care of the warehousing these vaccines and implementing the vacuna or the vaccination of our people will be under the Department of Health.
Well, that's good to know because I was beginning to get this impression, and I think a lot of people had the impression private sector will store their share of the vaccine in some private hospital or facility, and the donation to the DOH will take care. So you're saying everything will be
Everything.
under the DOH.
Everything under the government, because this is a donation to the government, and there may be private sector. There is a logistics summit that's being held on the 16th by Secretary Galvez and the T3 group that will discuss, and private sector can suggest. We can suggest, no. And in the end, it's their decision whether they will handle it or they will use a third party, which I believe that they will use a third party to help them in the process of logistics. No? And that's the very challenging part. No? But in the end, it is their responsibility in the full course. No? From the moment we give the vaccines, it's theirs. And they will honor what is in the tripartite agreement. And in fact, the tripartite agreement was done in a very, what I call equitable way, whereby the donor gets at least 50% of what it's donating for its employees. No? And USEC, Rosette Berere, reiterated that during an interview, no? And said, yes, the private sector is going to take their share, both permanent and contractual, since many of us do outsource also our activities, certain activities to contractors. No?
Yeah, we're not talking about peanuts here, Joey, because assuming if you're getting 2.6 million doses, and then there's a second order, and then there's another one. I mean, even at $1, which is way below the cost, I think, you're talking about $2.6 million.
So it's about 600 million pesos, the first part. No? If we're able to duplicate that or come close to it, that could be about $1 billion pesos. No?
Okay.
So the private sector has really, and I'm very happy that many of our big conglomerates, and of course even the large and medium, and by the way, we also met the Microfinance Council, because I'd like to make this really inclusive. About 15 to 20 members of the microfinance institutions joined us for this meeting because we'd like them to participate. No? They have a lot of frontliners. These are the finance companies who really help our micro and small entrepreneurs. And they're exposed. In the case of Dr. Alip of Card, he has 20,000 employees who really serve the sari-sari store, the palengke, the jeepney drivers, the tricycle. You've got TSKI, ASCII, and the rest. No? So we told them that Go Negosyo is willing to support them and help them get access to the vaccines and at least be able to protect their employees.
Okay, I hope. Okay, there you go. We're just having a lag there. Let's see if that signal improves. But that was Presidential Advisor Joey Concepcion, Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneurship. And I don't know. I honestly, I don't know what your sentiments as the viewers are. But I think Joey Concepcion deserves a more proper title. A more proper title than just being Presidential Advisor for Entrepreneur, because he has done much, much more than that. Let's see if he's back. Joey, are you back?
Can you hear me, Cito?
Yeah, okay, I got you there. Okay, so you were talking about the microfinance people, etc. You know, as you were talking, my mind went off tangent and in a spin because not to be discriminatory, no racial slur or anything, but you know, when you have all of these people, the 5-6 people who are lending money, going everywhere, you have the collectors, cabos of the weddings, you know, and then I'm just kind of like meter readers. I'm just saying, wow, We have an entire, multi-levels of people who are in the front line, who can be carriers or who can be actually in danger of COVID-19. So anyway, going back to my question, 1 billion pesos total. Are you getting any of it back? Especially if you're donating half a billion to government.
No, we're getting it back by helping the Filipino people survive this pandemic. I think in the end, all businesses are taking a toll, whether large or small or micro. So by helping the economy, and the private sector has been from the very start with testing and now the cure, which is the vaccine. If we donated so much on testing and testing equipments and PPEs, the vaccine is the solution. The rest are allowing us to coexist with the virus. And we all want to open the economy, and you can see many countries get devastated. You can look at America today with a surge. A number of businesses will suffer. We don't want that next wave, as Father was saying, could happen. And the only solution is really the vaccine. And that's why we are doing our best, and at least I'm getting the support from all of these people to support these programs. Whether we give to the government, yes, we're giving to the government, but it's going to the healthcare workers. These are the people who sacrifice their lives for us, and the frontliners. So it's the Bayanihan spirit that will enable us to really heal as one.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a special request on air, Joey, if that is at all possible, if you could provide us the name of those donors, whether it's company or individual, so we can honor them. We believe in honoring people who make sacrifices, who serve the nation, who serve the public. As yourself, I'm very much in your face talking to people about how you deserve a better title, more recognition for what you're doing. And I know, you kind of like shrug it off, Cito, knock it off, don't do that. But in this time when we're struggling, facing so many challenges, guys like you give us, inspiration to just keep slugging it out. Because if you're not giving up, we have no reason to give it up. Any message for our viewers, people out there?
Well, my message is, of course, we all want a Merry Christmas, and we have to hold on, especially our micro entrepreneurs. I know you're facing a great challenge, but rest assured that both the public sector, the government, and the private sector are working hand in hand to really try to find a solution to this very serious crisis. And we will do whatever we can to really support everyone out there to survive this crisis. And let's pray that in 2021 we'll have a better year. I'm confident that 2021 will be a better year than 2020.
Okay, well, we share in your optimism, and we hope that you are on the money this time, and may God return to you and your associates, all of those companies that foot the bill for this vaccine. May the Lord bless you tenfold for what you have done. Thank you, Joey.
Thank you, Cito. Thank you.
Okay, that's Presidential Advisor on Entrepreneurship, Joey Concepcion, and more than advisor, the guy, he's a catalyst for new ideas, a catalyst for new things, and sabi nga nila, makulit. But I tell many parents out there, many friends, if you have a child or someone in your group, in your family na makulit, that to me is a sign of intelligence, intellect, because their brain is spinning faster than most ordinary people. And mabuti na yung makulit kesa sa yung nakatunganga at nakanganga. Okay, so yun lang po, no? Just reminding you and praising Joey Concepcion for the big job he's doing. And mind you, he doesn't get paid for that, okay? And neither all of his associates in the industry, in the business sector. Imagine 1 billion pesos. that all the businessmen and companies are donating, small, medium enterprises, donating for the procurement of the vaccine. Eh, tama yung point ni Joey. We donate PPEs, we donate surgical gloves, we donate surgical masks, etc. Pagkatapos, ito na yung final weapon, the ultimate weapon. Ngayon pa tayo magtitipid? No, we do it. And even though responsibility takes energy and responsibility is tiring, responsibility can also be self-fulfilling. Thank you. And we will now go for a break. And we will return. When we return, we will speak with Governor Hermogenes, June Ebdane. Pasyal naman tayo sa Zambales here on Agenda. You're back here on Agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, and you are watching us via Signal TV, channels 8 and 250. Maraming salamat po sa inyong mga nagpakabit na ng Signal TV. Kami po ay nakalampas na sa 3 million. Kumbaga, yung tropa nating mga may signal, nakalampas na sa 3 milyong subscription. And sana naman po ay ma-share ninyo sa mga ibang kaibigan natin, lalo na sa mga nayon na kumbaga medyo mahirap makakuha ng regular na signal or cable, dito po sa signal satellite. Okay, satellite. And I know it will benefit many people. And kamusta po? Greetings to many of you who know me because of my teaching tours or teaching trips to the provinces because of BMEG, yung alagang BMEG. Mamaya, meron tayong alagang BMEG sa Facebook. Join us again where we will talk about how to take care of hogs or hog racing. Anyway, let's go now to Governor Hermogenes June Ebdane ng Zambales. Governor June, good day, good morning, good afternoon, kung ano man po. Gob?
Cito, magandang umaga sa iyo at congratulations at for your accomplishment at long time no here.
Hey, nako, ayoko kasi nanggagambala ng mga taong ang daming ginagawa. Pero ikaw ang dapat naming i-congratulate, sir, because ngayon magbubukas na naman ang tourism for Zambales.
Yeah, actually, Cito, yun ang napag-usapan namin ni Secretary Berna Puyat. And they should have come over except for a certain concern dahil dapat magkikita-kita kami mag-conference mag-meeting ng face-to-face pero na-expose kami sa COVID positive. So, naging virtual meeting ang nangyari. But it was very productive one.
Okay, now, how true is it that the province of Zambales will be opening up to tourism? And kung totoo, when are you going to officially do it?
Actually, Cito, we have been preparing for this. Kaya nga on the health side, marami kami preparasyon. But meron lang we should have opened sooner. Yeah. Pero may mga konting mga lapses na sa mga usapan dahil meron yung mga sasabihin ko na sasabi ko ng totoo na meron pa rin mga pasaway na mga resort owners. Yung pinipilit nila kasi na huwag na lang mag-RT-PCR or magpa-test yung mga turista na papasok. But ang sabi naman natin is we are concerned about the health and safety of our people, not only of our local population, but kasama din yung mga pumapasok dito. Nonetheless, part of our program, ginawa na namin ay yung procurement ng mga machine in the detection of the virus. At nag-prepare kami for whatever. So, we are coming up with a document, but we have to work through a technical working group. Maybe soon we can realize it pag naayos na lahat.
Okay, so meron na ba kayong laboratory in the province? Kasi yung ibang probinsya na nag-open up or destinations, what they're doing is they required visitors to have the test done from their place of origin at ipipresent na lang by email and personally yung test results when they arrive. Diyan ba ang gusto ninyo diyan magpa-test sa Zambales?
Actually, Cito, yan ang health protocol, that before any visitor from other jurisdictions or even returning residents can come, dapat tested sila negative for the virus.
Yeah.
Pero yung tanong mo kung meron na kami molecular laboratory, meron na kami ito for about a month na. Okay. And na ginagawa na namin ito, kaya instead of waiting for 2 to 3 days ng resulta pag merong RT-PCR, kung nag-iisa lang yung tao, in 45 minutes, we can find out whether he or she is positive or not. At nagano rin kami ng mga ibang ano na yung pang-emergency, kaya na anti-gen equipment, i-deploy namin sa ano, sa mga forward control points.
Okay, now, paano yung magiging system? If, assuming nagpa-test ako or na-test ninyo ako dyan, will I still be required to quarantine overnight? Because some places, pag nakapasa ka, they still ask you to check in sa hotel, huwag kang lalabas for at least 12 hours to 24 hours.
Ang request natin dito ay kung pwede yung immediately before they come over.
Yes, so.
Day or two before, ano? At saka kung pwede, on their own, huwag na silang kakalat-kalat doon sa lugar nila para hindi sila makasagap ng virus. And they have to go direct to their destination.
Okay.
Pero kailangan yun, merong prior coordination doon sa resort owner. And it's a requirement na informahan din kami na meron silang darating na bisita. Ngayon, doon sa mga nakakalusot at nalaman namin, papupuntahan namin ng tao namin at we have to conduct RT-PCR swabbing on the spot. But pag ganyan, wala kasi offhand, yung may misunderstanding o misnomer doon sa pag-ano ng travel authority. Yung travel authority kasi is based on health certificate that is free of the virus.
Yes.
But ang sabi ko, we have to be strict on the first document. Yung test result, they have to have the original test result with them when they travel. Di bali na ibang buwan, importante yung test result.
Okay, now, last year, Zambales was ranked second in terms of tourist arrival, and the province earned a whopping 1.9 billion in tourist expenditure. Paano na ngayon yan? Paano kayo naapektuhan na wala kayong mga tourists and ngayon may problema ka pa doon sa mga pasaway na resort owner?
Well, unang-una, Cito, meron na yung tungkol dyan sa 1.9 billion. We have frankly, we have no data on that. Nagkaroon lang ng interpolation yung mga tao na in charge of that. They came up with numbers, tapos nag-time sila. But sabi ko, i-correct niya yan kasi sa IRA lang, ang IRA lang namin dito is 1.2 billion. That's the one that coming from the government.
Yeah.
Baka hanapin sa amin ng tao yung actually 1.4 nakalagay.
Okay.
That was only a result of the interpolation na ginawa nitong mga opisyalis namin. It would be true na mayroong gano'n, but ang karamihan nito, pumupunta lang doon sa resort owners, doon simple nagagasta nila sa mga restaurant, yung mga transportation, etc. Actually, Cito, minimal lang naman pumapasok sa gobyerno. What we appreciate is when there is movement of people, especially tourists, that generates employment, and that's the advantage. Ngayon, dito sa atin ay na-feel naman talaga natin, pero nung nag-uusap-usap kami, sabi ko, aminin natin talagang bagsak ang negosyo, that we have to wait for 2 to 5 years. But then sabi ko, we have to come up with alternatives. Now, ang ang kung na lang dito, ang issue na lang that we have to resolve is about the need or the requirement for the conduct of COVID virus test.
Okay.
At I think maano naman natin yan kasi organize tayo ng technical working group to work on it. Sabi ko, ang bottom line is the health and safety of the local population and the visitors are non-negotiable.
Ayun, okay.
Ang ano lang naman, siguro in a scale of, sabihin mo, hindi naman ito, sabihin natin, with 100 resorts, destinations, siguro dalawa-tatlo lang naman ang mga pasaway dyan. Ang problema, kung titin mo, they're not from Zambales, they're foreigners who own this resort. Yun nga, yan po, sabi ko, you have to feel like you're a native of Zambales to appreciate the situation.
Okay, anong plano ninyo dyan sa mga pasaway na yan? Because there are other areas na if you do not comply, you do not follow, they shut you down.
Well, what we will do siguro is, we come up with a document, we let them sign a document that this must be it. These are the parameters. This is the provisions of the listed protocol. And then, ang sabi ko sa kanila, you have to abide with it. If you cannot, then your resort will not be included in the clearance.
Ayun, okay. Well, sana madaan sa maayos na pag-uusap, Governor. Pero sanay ka rin naman dyan because you served in the Philippine National Police. You know how to talk to civilians, but at the same time, you also know how to enforce discipline. So we are just looking forward na ma-resolve yung issue about PCR testing kasi nami-miss na namin ang Zambales, Governor.
Yeah. Sito, kung meron lang, kami naman ay, sabi ko, being the local chief executive of the province, sabi ko, in instances the individual who is already there, tapos they have not complied, we can manage it. Kaya minsan, may dumating isang pamilya, before nandun na sila sa resort, sa parating, alas 10 ng gabi. Sabi ng pulis ako, papalikin namin. Sabi ko, teka muna, escortan nyo nga ako doon sa hotel na pupuntahan nila. And then I talked to them, sabi ko, escortan kayo, but please do not leave the hotel. We will send a medical team to conduct examination. And then, nawalan naman, negative. So, nagpapagalaman sila. In fact, hindi na namin sila pinagbayad. Kasi, alam nyo, pagka-bahero, marami ng problema yan. I do not want to burden them of any other thing anymore. So, flexible naman tayo. Pagka just tell us, and if it is necessary, we can come to your place and get specimens para siguro lang. We can go to that extent.
Okay, well, mabuti. Good news yan, Governor, and we wish you all the best. And pag talagang ready, set, go, pakisabihan lang kami para matawagan namin kayo ulit at ma-announce natin dito sa agenda.
Yeah, salamat dito at mabuti nitong pinag-uusapan ito kasi we have the situation under control. We have 10 cases before, but then biglang pumasok kasi yung mga workers who just finished their contract in Antipolo, Rizal. Tapos pagdating dito, nagkagamigagat ng 25. And there are other personnel working in Ismail na na-expose din doon sa mga nagka-quarantine sa loob. Kasi hindi naman sila nag-stay doon ng 14 days. They transit from their residence to the place of work on a daily basis. So pagka merong na-infect na isa, is the whole family. As of now, we have 66. From 10 to 66. Kaya, sabi ko nga, yan ang pagkandaan natin. Sa akin naman po, I'm not I wouldn't mind kung medyo tataas ang number of cases. For as long as we can identify, we can isolate them. Kaysa yung kukunti lang nakalagay sa record, pero marami nakakalat. Yun po ang mahirap eh. We have to identify each and every case para ma-contain. Nangyari yan sa Masinloc, umabot ng 258 in one day, and we have to conduct 2,500 na tests sa population. We have to lock down the power plant, lock down the whole barangay, and we have to provide food for 1 week for these people. For 2,300 families.
Pero, ngayon, okay na.
Hello?
Ngayon, okay na ngayon.
Okay, we were able to contain that immediately.
Yeah, okay.
It took us 3 days to finish the work. Kinausap namin ang Red Cross, nagpatulong din tayo doon sa power plant at pinasa naman doon sa yung subcontractor nila. But then, imagine 2,500 individuals at 4,000 each, that's 10 million worth of RT-PCR each.
Okay. Well, magpapasalamat na ako, Governor. Naubusan na kami ng oras. So, thank you very much for joining us this morning. And we wish you all the best. Please take care. Okay.
Salamat din.
Okay. Yan po si Governor Hermogenes June Ebdane. Apparently, there was a slight glitch, a little speed bump on the road so to opening tourism in Zambales, and it is all because of this evident need for RT-PCR, and some resort owners or operators are like saying, wag na nating i-test, total, isolated. Well, it is a public health concern, and the good of the majority will always be foremost and in upfront, or the priority of any local government official. So, and that is the case in Zambales with Governor June Ebdane. The time is 9:27. Gotta go. Please take care of yourselves. God bless you. Thank you for joining us. Maraming salamat po. Kita-kits tayo ulit bukas here on Agenda on Signal TV.